Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me here. I'm Zoe Roellin, and I'll be giving you a behind the scenes tour of Lustration VR, which is a really cool project I've worked on. This presentation will be roughly split into two parts. I've got some slides at the start about the background of the project and how it came to be, and then we'll be dipping straight into Quill and have a look at the files with the backgrounds. And the characters and animation and also optimization. And we'll go especially into depth on those three topics because those are actually the areas that I handled and worked on. The whole project is a big team effort, of course. It's produced by New Canvas, who are an Australian studio focusing on VR storytelling. It's been founded pretty recently. And they were a really cool team to work with. Sadly enough, none of them could join me for this live stream because it's very much in the middle of the night in Australia right now. But I'll try and do my best to represent the whole team. I assume that many, if not most of you, have already watched Lustration VR, but I'll try to sum up the experience real quick anyway. So Lustration VR takes place in an old-style 50s diner. And there are 4 characters there, 2 pairs that are having conversations. And the interesting thing about the storytelling of Lustration VR is that as a viewer, you are pretty much dropped in this diner at a table, and it's up to you to navigate through this diner with different viewpoints. Where then you can decide where you want to be and what conversations do you want to listen into. Because these conversations are actually going on simultaneously, so you kind of need to make your own way throughout the experience, and maybe even rewatch it to try to get the whole picture. Lustration VR is actually based on a comic book by Ryan Griffin, and with art by James Brower. And Ryan has talked about why he specifically chose Lustration to make a VR adaptation of. So Ryan was part of a VR residency with Start Beyond, an Australian VR studio. And he chose Lustration and that particular format of moving around a space and trying to listen into conversations and trying to get the whole picture. Because as he's described, Lustration itself is a story that's very concerned with truths and looking behind the facade of a person and deciding about or trying to figure out who's good, who's evil, and kind of find a whole truth like that. So that approach of letting the viewer themselves navigate through the story is kind of meant to underscore that. So one of the inspirations was Sleep No More, which is an immersive theater, and that kind of touches on similar themes of the audience being placed in an environment where all across it different actors are set up and the audience getting to explore the space themselves, which I think is a really fascinating touch point for storytelling in VR. Another inspiration was Alex Sci-Fi World, which is a really cool project. I still look at it regularly. But that was back when the Quill Theater had just come out. And actually, at first, the Lustration folks were planning to use Quill for early Wiz stuff and asset creation and then port it into a game engine. But when the Quill Theater came out and things setting up different viewpoints became possible, and they saw works like Alex Sci-Fi World, where you could navigate through the world, they decided that producing it directly to Quill Theater would be the way to go, and I think it's found a really great home there. Which brings us to the end of this slide portion, and then I'll be dipping into Quill. So, here we are in the diner. The whole diner background was created by Justin Randall, and he sent me some of his progress here. It was obviously inspired by real 50s diners, with that typical tiled floor and the booths. And actually, throughout the whole Lustration VR experience, we aimed to stick really close to the style and the feel of the comic. And I think Justin kind of went above and beyond in that he told me he used like this panel where you can see how big the tiles are in relation to the table to kind of copy that and like figure out how big everything else in the diner would be in relation to those tiles. So like really faithful to the source material. This version here includes some adjustments by me to the line art. I'll get to that later. But yeah, the groundwork and furniture is all Justin. Sadly enough, like some work he had already done in the back rooms got like scrapped because we decided to have the story play out all here in the front rooms, and so in the back it's like all empty. Nothing to be seen here.
It's actually a bag.
Yeah. Like Justin told me he'd actually modeled the bathrooms and everything.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So that map you have that you just showed.
Yes.
That is something you just did specifically for this, and you didn't use this during production, right? Or did you?
No, I mean, Justin used it when he modeled the diner, I think.
Just like this in the scene? That's funny.
Oh, no, I don't know that. That I put in here myself.
Yeah.
Cool.
Looks like a poster. I like it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Then when I got the diner, it looked a little bit different than that, but was already pretty much put together. And we started out kind of like this, with some cutouts of the comic characters in there. And so my task now was to model the characters and get them optimized enough to, be able to have 5 characters simultaneously in the scene. So, let's go into blackness real quick. The first character I worked on was Bart, Bardolph, and this was the earliest version of him I sent over. Already looking like color-wise pretty close to the comics. I was real careful to not use the lathing technique when creating him, because that would have been way too polygon heavy. This is not quite optimized yet, but as you can see, I tried to use like lots of single strokes whenever possible, construct a face like this, kind of following Daniel's really good tutorial on constructing faces. One really important touch point that I took from there is like to not use strokes like this that kind of like fray out at the edges, but use the line tool, and so make sure that you have like no edges that take extra polygons, and it keeps everything like nice and smooth. But the thing is, when I sent this in, I was working with Isabella from New Canvas. She was a really cool production manager. And the feedback was, yeah, it's already looking great. Like the likeness is pretty good. But actually the line art doesn't quite match the comic yet. Because this is also a page from the comic. As you can see, the comic kind of uses much more like bold black line art. And also quite a lot of like hatching to show shadow. And also more like kind of straight strokes. Meanwhile, I have used kind of like flowing strokes, which maybe if you know my other works, that's something I really like to do. But it just wasn't quite working for Bart. So I was like, okay, how do I best solve this? I was also worried that if I added like more hatching, he'd get like really heavy. But then I realized that actually for the line art, I can use strokes like what Daniel showed in his face tutorial as well. So like use the line tool to make let's use something other than black so you can actually see polygons, to create like pretty small strokes. Like the bigger you go, the more polygons you have, the smaller the less, or the fewer. And then use these actually to make all of the line art. So I'd set up a little library of small strokes and then take them and kind of adjust them like this. Which which then you'd get like, yeah?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. you'd get like much lighter polygon-wise strokes. You can kind of like tug out the little tip at the end to get them nice and pointy. And
at some point you're just moving vertex,
Yeah. It's got a lot of less of a drawing feel when you work like that, but it worked really well for that. And what I liked as well, because for the animation I used a lot of frame by frame animation where I would bend things around. And what I like about stroke like this is that if you have like a normal stroke, like so, and let's say you like have to bend it for something, but then the motion goes back and you want to get it back in its original state, that's pretty hard to get it like nice and straight again. On the other hand, if you have these, you can just kind of like, bend them as you will, and you won't mess them up too much.
So you don't have to like copy it from a healthy frame.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
So that worked pretty well. And then I got to this, basically. Those are the next two stages. Here pretty much finished already, but then I did a bit more work on the face to get it more looking like the source art. And the finished model of Bart at least, was like 63k triangles, which was pretty good. Like I knew that,
pretty
okay.
Impressive for sure.
Yeah.
Detail, yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, well, thanks, yeah. But I was like, we're gonna have 5 characters simultaneously, and the diner isn't small exactly, so I tried to keep all of them. Here's the whole crew. Like between 50k and 80k is what they ended up.
Who is the largest?
That is a good question. I would guess Bax.
Yeah, I would guess so too, because he has tattoos.
Yeah, tattoos. I was careful to like really only use like very flat strokes, the super flat brush for those tattoos. But
really
he's still
hard to do.
It is, and let me tell you, they were hell to animate as well.
Yeah, because you have to
put it in a group, right?
Yeah. But it worked out. And the smallest is probably Eliza, because she actually has a bit less detail than everyone else and less hatching, because in the scene, she's kind of sitting outside the window, so it makes sense that she'd have less detail, because like if you would draw something on a comic page, you'd draw all like with roughly the same brush size, right? So if something is farther away, it'd have less detail. Anyway. So those are all the characters. And then I went straight into animation. I'll tell you a little bit more about how the characters were set up later. But first, let's get back to the diner. And look at these early, like, keyframes here. Where it just kind of mapped out everyone's, like, main motions. I actually started out with taking the script with the dialogue that I'd been sent, and like annotating that. And what I really wanted to pay attention to is, like, from the beginning, we said that we want to have pretty simple animation. We don't have like huge time or capacity, but I really wanted to bring a lot of life into the characters and kind of spread it out so that there was always at least like something happening. But at the same time, keep the motions pretty small and simple.
Were you the only animator on this, or were there more animators?
It was all me. Justin, who did the backgrounds, did the rain, but everything else was me.
Nice.
So it's a total 2 artists in this whole piece, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Some of the new canvas folks like set up the viewpoints and put in the audio, but as far as art goes, it's 2 artists. Yes.
Cool.
So if we go over to the like finished animation with the in-betweens, yeah, moving smoothly. It was really important to me that there was like nice interplay between the characters, and that there are like general motions and body language represented everyone. I tried to space movements out so that your attention could go nice like from one character to then the other, and there weren't too many things happening at the same time. And yeah, there were, sometimes there were questions like, hey, if Sherry here makes coffee, does it make sense for her to like walk back to a coffee machine or get something from back there? But to me the answer was pretty clearly like no, because that would take up very, very much time, and I'd much rather have her like standing here pretty like without moving too much, but use that time that I will not use to make like a walk cycle and stuff to actually just spread out more little animations all over.
Where were you, say,
So I
Yes?
guess you're gonna talk about this, but is this frame by frame or keyframe?
I was going to ask the same question.
Good question. Answer is both, mostly frame by frame.
Oh,
So
really?
yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, when I watched Lustration, I thought it's totally all keyframes. But
Yeah. Well, I can show you how the characters are set up if you like take this little
Yes,
interaction.
please.
It's very simple. Everyone has, let's see, backs here. So this is early from the loop where he arrives breeding, but the whole main animation is like right in here. And everyone has a body and a head. And the body is animated frame by frame, and the head is made with keyframes. Well, key transformation keys. That is because of different reasons. One, I really like animating frame by frame. Two, back when I was working on this, there, like in the last update, you added a lot of really cool functions for like kind of basically rigging characters, and those just weren't there yet. But also, if these characters were actually all rigged, that would be a pretty high draw call amount. Because
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because they're all like 5 of them are simultaneously in the scene, and I once calculated that like a fully rigged character would be like 17 draw calls or something like
At
that.
least, yeah.
Yeah, at
for one,
least.
yeah.
And that just wouldn't have worked.
That's true.
Yeah, so this is what it. But
Yeah, makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, but the important thing about the head being done with transformation keys was so that I could add lip sync easily and expressions also, and most importantly add that in post, because when I was working on the early animation, what we had was kind of like a placeholder audio track. So I really needed to be able to add lip sync later, and like even then I think it would be pretty hard to add lip sync in this one as well. I haven't thought about it too much. It worked.
That makes sense. So basically, you can still animate the head, and then because it's non-destructive, then you can go in and do the lip sync whenever
exactly.
you want, right?
So how it said.
So inside of the head folder, you have a jaw or a mouth layer, and then you have the rest of the face. I mean, the rest of the head in a separate layer, right?
Yes. So when I was working on this, no, go back, please. Let's go back to 2 minutes. Why has this changed to?
I just tapped the timestamp at the very top, at the very top of the timeline. That it says frame 3106 next to 24 frames per second. Yeah, just tap that. Yeah.
Learn new things every day.
You can switch between.
It is run right now, huh? That's a really good trick.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Are we here? Oh, yeah, here. So this is kind of Sherry before, like, the lip sync. And what I did was I had a frame in there, an extra frame, which is like all mouth shapes. So all of them right in here.
Can you actually hide the top portion?
Oh yeah, sure. Goodbye face.
Oh wow! So you split it in half.
Yeah, the lower part of the face. Yeah.
Yeah, and then if I'd have
makes sense.
Like right here, she goes like coffee. Wait, let me turn up the audio a little bit.
Coffee?
You can hear that, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it'd be like, okay, coffee kind of starts with an O sound, roughly. I also got to add, I didn't try to get too detailed with the lip sync, because what we planned was like pretty simple mouth flaps. And already like adding mouth shapes was a little bit ambitious. But basically I'd have like, okay, here I need an O sound. So I go to, I'd say this is a nice one. Kind of, I got the, so select this and then just like copy it in here.
So you did have like a library. So the mouth shapes is kind of like your library. Right?
Yeah, exactly. That was my library. And then like do the next frame after that and so on.
Which
so
is
instead
why
of
okay.
Yeah. And
instead of having the library all in one frame, you have it in the separate frames.
Well, yeah, because then like even if she's like turning her head, the library will just adjust to that always.
And then you just copy and paste the frame, and they will always be on the right position, right?
Exactly, yeah. You don't have to track them into the right position.
That's clever. I like it. Cool.
Thanks. Very glad to hear it.
No, I have a lot of questions. Sorry. So the process would be create an empty frame, and then go to the layer where the library is, and then copy, and then go back to your animation and then paste. That's the process, right?
Exactly, yeah. That's a process.
Yeah. Empty frame, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
And then because the mouth is an individual frame, you can also like always like delete frames to have things earlier or add frames to have them later, like adjust the timing like that, basically.
Yeah.
Very efficient.
Yeah.
And it was the same with the expressions there. I didn't have like a library, but I just, after all the animation was done, I did go in there and kind of, added her blinking if she had to be blinking with like a new frame and so on.
So when you do the blink, is it just the eyes, or would you just duplicate the top portion of the head?
It's duplicate the top portion of her head.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, it was also like frame by frame.
They were light enough, I guess, right? That it didn't.
They were light enough, but that is also something that actually, it's something I have to think about because, so the whole illustration experience is like 2 minutes long, a bit longer than that. And so we never had any problems with like memory overhead, right? But if I were to work like on a bigger project in the future that had a lot of characters, then that would actually might get problematic, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I combat that is just the eyes, like I have a blink layer, and you can then use spans, which is also super powerful. I think I showed it in a past stream or something where, then you can just reuse one animation anytime you want. And because the eyes are in the folder, you can just span it out, right?
Yeah.
So a very efficient way. Oh, I need a blink here. Open span, close span. Oh, I need a blink here and stuff, and then.
I have a question about that too.
Okay.
I have a question about that too with the lip sync. I know you had the layer that is just the library, right? How do you access that library if you're really far away on the timeline, like you are in minute number 2 or something?
Oh, I just drag it around.
You just grab the whole clip, the whole the library, and just move it around. So it's.
I mean, I did all the animation in like one straight through. So I was always just moving ahead, drag it a little bit further, move ahead. So that it didn't get too confusing. Yeah. So what time do we have?
We are at 40 minutes in right now. So you have 20 minutes to the hour, but you can go over if you have
Okay.
time, but,
I don't think I will. I guess I hurried a little bit right now because I was afraid, but I think we're mostly fine. Cool. Let's see. So, let's move on to optimization for now, because that was another key part of the project and actually quite tricky, or a little bit tricky at least. So optimization, first pass of optimization happened roughly after I had done the first like keyframes of the animation. And the thing there was that Justin constructed like a beautiful, very clean diner. But Justin has also previously worked a lot more with tilt brush than Quill, so he didn't know a lot about optimization. And so the diner, kind of after using the optimization tool on a pretty high setting, was roughly 3 million triangles. So it definitely had to be cut down. And there I approached that in two ways. First of all, like find the worst offenders, and second of all, find repeating elements. So the worst offender was this plant right here.
Oh my god, yeah.
Beautiful plant, very, very luscious. Even after optimized on a very high setting, has roughly as many triangles as all the characters combined.
Unless it's a very important part of the story.
I'm very sad it had to die, but I did kill it. It's been replaced.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
More modernized.
Yeah.
Modernized version.
Exactly.
That's
like
so funny.
Thankfully, the walls and everything were able to be optimized like very neatly because Justin worked very neatly with the line tool. But things like the boots were also pretty heavy. So I actually completely redid the boots. Let's see. Those were the old ones. Pre-optimization, I gotta say. And then the new ones were more like this. And the good thing about that is that once I'd done those boots, like one of those, I could just copy that straight over. And the great thing is, if I manage to cut down like, say 50k triangles here or 100k triangles here, that does get multiplied across like, I don't know, 10 boots at least. Yeah. So you're already a lot lighter. And so I did the same thing with the lamps and the stools and everything else. Well, not everything else, but a few other things. And then also a big part of optimization was the line art, actually. Though that was also something we anyway wanted to adjust stylistically to be closer to the characters. Because if you see here in the old diner, the line art was very neat and had all kind of like the same stroke weight. So what I did was basically same as with the characters. Once again, took those like small strokes. I'm not on the right layer. Come here. Yeah. Like small strokes like that. Then like just drag them out to work as the line art in black, of course. But that also had the upside of once again being much lighter. These here are like cube strokes, which have a lot of facets. And so in the end, the diner kind of ended up looking like this, with a lot more like difference in line weight between the line art and also some pretty like harsh black shadows that I think work pretty well to underscore the comic feel.
Super nice.
That's awesome.
Did you use like a specific brush, like one type only, or like for the line art, or did you use basically a flat one?
Two types. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think for the line art in the diner, I probably use pretty much all just this very thin one.
Ribbon.
Yeah, ribbon.
And then for the characters, you used the Daniel brush.
Is this the Daniel brush? This one?
He uses it and he loves that brush. So.
Possibly, yes. For the characters, I kind of switched it up. I think all of these like very, very thin strokes are the flat one, but things that needed to have more. Well, this is flat too, actually. Things that need to have more volume.
Some thickness,
yeah. Exactly. Like especially on the hands, because this is pretty forgiving because you pretty much see Bart from like closely from one angle, and he doesn't move around that much. But the hands, especially, would be like moving around a lot while he picked up things, so they really needed to look good and readable from all angles. So there I did use a lot of thick strokes.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you end up animating like a stroke that only works from certain angles and just animate that stroke away so it kind of disappears in some places, or?
Oh, whether I did that? I did not. I could have, but yeah.
I think Lustration works pretty much from like multiple angles, right? The characters are not animated necessarily to spawn area. Like if you rotate the camera, they still look pretty detailed, right?
It works. Like especially Sherry and Bax work pretty much from all angles.
Trust me.
That's pretty hard to do. Well, I really like how you added the line work just to detail the inside of the silhouette, not to do the actual outline, because that's the common mistake. Like when you want to imitate the comic book style, is to do the outline, right? Whatever, like in the shoulder, for example, or you want to do that line, but
then that looks right exactly from like one angle, and as soon as you turn it, you've got a stroke in the middle of your
that floating thing in there. So I was wondering if you ever I guess not, because the user can just go anywhere, right?
It's really successful, I have to say. It
works really well.
This perfect toon shader, right? Like it's like that's how toon shaders should act, because toon shaders generate strokes. It always looks kind of weird.
Manually drawn shader.
Like a comic. Manual toon shader. The best.
The trick is to have definitely it works. Like
I like how you use the jeans seam there on the side on him.
That's good.
It's awesome
to hide the fact that you're having that outline. I was gonna say the trick is always to have that kind of contrast, with the silhouette of the character, so you don't need that outline of the line surrounding the silhouette. You don't need that if you have a good contrast of the colors.
Yes. Thankfully, like the colors work pretty well with the rest of the diner. Like there's no stark overlap of stuff. Yeah, I gotta be completely honest, the reason why those two also look good from like behind is because towards the beginning of the project we had a viewpoint also placed here. If we hadn't had that, I probably wouldn't have bothered to do the back as well. Also because like it saves more polygons,
Sure,
yeah. Then let's also touch on what I like to call the glass issue, and I think some of you who frequent the help channel in the Discord know about this, because I did ask for help there. So the early version of the diner, let's go back. Had the glass displayed as kind of like transparent area. And I had heard about the fact that especially transparent big areas end up looking bad on the Quest most of the time. So that is...
If it covers the entire screen, then the peripheral portion renders differently, so you get like those giant blocks.
Exactly, yeah. And I didn't really know the true, like how bad it would look. So like pretty early in the process, I sent a mail to the rest of the team like, hey, the glass might become an issue, but like let's wait and see how it looks in Quest in the end. And well, it ended up looking really, really horrible. So it had to go. And the trick I used there, and I think Goro especially touches on that on some other videos, because this works for like anytime you want to simulate kind of looking through a transparent surface, like also water or glass, is this area is now all gone, and what's actually grayish is just like the whole outside world. And and like to kind of heighten the illusion, I added some things that hang on the glass. I even added some like small lines that are here to like suggest that there is a window right here, or that there is a glass window right here. The one thing where this doesn't quite work is actually here when you have overlap, because like this whole portion is supposed to be grayer as well. And I guess I could have gone in and painted the whole outside of the diner grayish, but this was pretty late in the production and the deadline was looming pretty close, so I didn't do that.
But honestly, I was sitting there and I did not notice because
right?
the menus leaning against the window,
yeah.
So your brain just tells you, that of course there's a glass, So
yeah.
That's why it works so well.
It's pretty great. Actually, while I was going through files to like set up this for this live stream, I was like, oh yeah, cool. I gotta touch on the glass. I gotta have a diner version in there with the glass intact. And I was like, oh yeah, this I'm looking at right here. The glass is still in there. Isn't that a really new version? And I was like, oh no, actually glass is gone. It just looks like it. So it fooled even me.
That's funny.
Yeah, I did make this grayer and to like have some illusion right here. A new difficulty that this brought on was though that we'd have a switch to the credits in the end, where you'd suddenly be like outside and looking at the credits. So actually, and this might also be a memory overhead issue in a bigger project, but the whole diner is on one layer, and these are like the whole diner surroundings. And I just make a new frame where it switches to black. Like once you're teleported, exactly. Like exactly at this moment, you're teleported outside to this viewpoint, and then it will already have switched to black. There's also some like extra rain right here, so it doesn't look too empty. Some things inside the diner disappear. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the cool thing about environments are that yes, they add memory, but it's only like one frame, right? Like, if you were to animate it, then it's like a huge problem, like when Quill wasn't as advanced before in animation. Daniel animated, like in his Christmas thing, I think he animated a whole set frame by frame.
Okay.
And that's when
you say that to everybody.
Yeah, that's when it gets tricky.
That's when you get tricky with memory for sure.
Yeah.
I love it though. When you did
I can't believe that worked on the Facebook Spaces application, remember?
Because it's PC VR, right? So
yeah, it was only on PC. Yeah, that's why it worked. It was choppy as hell. Anyway.
Well, at least it worked, Eliza right here switches in color as well. And like to make space for the extra rain, a bunch of things inside the diner disappear.
What you did here is like you kept the original color first, and then you duplicated it, and then you just added like the haze overall, right?
Yeah. And then at the credits, there's like Eliza true colors and Eliza wrong colors, and then it just like switches right over.
Yeah. It's awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
So Alex has a question about that goes back to animation a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about the challenge of animating the tattoos?
Well, the challenge of animating the tattoos was that they would get lost all the time. Well, or almost lost. So if you have
because you use frame by frame instead of grouping the arm into a
exactly
transform keys.
Yeah, and honestly, now afterwards, I was like, maybe I should have just specifically for backs. Maybe I should have animated his arms frame by frame. With transform keys.
Well, you could have kept the frame by frame, but you could always animate with transform and then bake it.
Yeah,
that is true. Yeah,
that is true. I might have been.
That's what I did for my mom. With the leotard pants that she has, it was really challenging to keep that texture, the pattern on the legs, and I wanted to animate frame by frame. And then after trying many things, I think it was around the time they come out with the update that you can bake the transform keys, and that gave me the idea. Oh, now that you can bake the transform keys, maybe I can do this. in transform keys and then bake it.
Yeah.
So you can always keep that texture on the legs, and they will stick on the legs.
That's pretty smart. What I did was basically, anytime I had to animate the arms, I had to like select them all.
Yeah.
Then it's kind of easy down here, but once you get up here, you have to be like real careful. You don't miss any strokes. And like I'm pretty sure if you watch the whole experience, like zoomed in on the arms, there would be some changes to the tattoo throughout. It might get simpler and simpler. But so far nobody's. I already missed one. I missed several.
I'm gonna go back in, Zoe, and I'm gonna check every frame and call you out.
Go ahead. Do you know if that's fun to you? I'll just do the same to your works. I'm sure there must be something, right?
Please don't.
I'll be looking at like this.
Yeah, it's basically the challenge is really in the selection, right? That's
yeah. But
and never use grab tool on the tattoo arm, right?
That's true.
No, well, you can do a little bit of grabbing. Like it's fine mostly, but here it starts.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good. Maybe because it's like, a small amount of vertices and stuff.
Well, and I did try to have it not like super close to the arm.
No, okay.
To get like some flexibility in there. Yeah.
Wow.
I did think about this, but it was still a big pain.
Yeah.
I love what you just did, by the way, with a large grab tool. I always love seeing that when you make it really big and then you make him turn the whole body. Like,
yeah. I mean, I just...
wrist left and right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This is so fun.
Yeah. And I really loved working by frame and getting to do that, because like for many motions I do kind of like, just make a new frame, ease in a little bit, and then I making it like do the whole motion and then like ease out a little bit before. So it was great. Yeah.
Do you have an animation background, or are you self-taught?
Self-taught. Kind of.
Yeah.
Well, so I would call myself mainly an illustrator. I studied illustration. But I did a pretty crazy thing. During our last year of high school, we all had to do kind of like a small thesis project. And 18-year-old Zoe was like, let's do a 2-minute frame-by-frame 2D animation. I think we were supposed to spend like 30 hours roughly on that project. I ended up spending more than 100. But basically over the course of working on that, I tried to teach myself how to animate. I read the Animator survival kit, but specifically character animation. And the movie, it's up on my YouTube channel. I'm actually... I've obviously
post it in the channel later. So
I will. I've obviously grown a lot as an artist since then, and like the backgrounds and the style are super simple, but I still quite like it. Like I'd say I'm pretty proud of it. Yeah.
Cool.
Let me take a peek at my notes real quick.
Yeah.
To see if there are any important key points. Honestly, I think not so much. I mean...
You're at the 1 hour mark too, but I have actually a question about the menus and stuff. And like where you're sitting, if you go back to
Yeah. Wait,
so that is all Photoshop, I believe, then? Like, you just designed it all in 2D?
Yes.
Or is this actual Quill strokes, the diner menu, for example?
No, they're all Photoshop. Let's actually go back here. This you mean, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, this is totally a PNG. Just a transparent one. This is actually something we added pretty late in the process.
If you look down a little bit more so we can see it. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, no. The menu you mean? Oh, I thought you meant this one.
No.
No, the menu is all strokes.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
Yeah.
Food menu.
Yeah, the food menu.
The food menu is all strokes.
But obviously the comic pages are not.
No. Oh gosh, no. The menu Justin made. I just did some adjustments, like made everything nice and really flat. Yeah, I think those are really neat. They're all across the diner. I thought you were talking about these, which we added
that
to
write it all with Quill. That would be
not
very efficient. But so the comic pages you have there, is that from the original artist, from Ryan, I believe it is, right?
Yeah. Well, Ryan Griffin wrote the story. He's like TV and film writer, Australian, and then James Brower did the art. And he also did all the concept art for the characters, which we saw briefly earlier. But I'll go back to that.
Has the original artist seen this in VR?
I'm pretty sure he has. I would hope so.
You guys had no communication? No.
Well, throughout the process, like these are the concept art pictures, I mainly communicated with Isabella and Nathan from the New Canvas team. They were kind of like the production managers. And like at the beginning of the project, we had a Skype call to like introduce everyone. But that was pretty much it. So sadly enough, no, I don't think I ever got to talk to James. And I mean, I sure hope he was happy with how it all turned out.
Yeah, I'm sure you're like, I would be curious to know if he was happy with how you translated the characters to 3D, three dimensions.
Yeah, I mean,
sure, I would be.
Definitely when the
looks really good.
Oh, it looks amazing.
When the project was finished, there was like a big group mail, and everybody was like pretty happy about it, like really happy about it. Yeah.
Is there any Easter eggs? Did you hide stuff under the table? Or did you...
I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. I spent all my time doing little animations. There was no time for Easter eggs.
Yeah. So the posters on the walls, they're also all of that is Quill, like the posters, the flyers
Quill.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yes, all done by Justin as well. Like here. I think the only PNGs we've got were it's that text at the beginning and the comic pages and then the credits, and that's it.
Really awesome.
Yeah.
I really like the atmosphere that you feel when you're there in VR, and when you see the characters talking, it's like, oh, I really want to hear what they say, and it's and I think it's like one of the longest animations that I've seen in the theater.
I think its lifetime achievement is 15 minutes.
Yeah.
15.
That would be really hard to talk.
Yeah, but in terms of dialogue, I haven't seen like a character talking for a long time, like these guys. I was really, really impressed with that.
Well, happy to hear it. It definitely was a lot of work, but it was really rewarding to do.
Thank you so much for running this cast. This was awesome, and awesome behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, that was really, really informative.
Well, thank you for tuning in.